In the corridors of Western power, a seismic shock is registered, not from the thunder of war, but from the steady, relentless movement of a train. The world's attention, long fixed on the flashpoints of conflict, now pivots to a new axis of change, one forged not by armies but by steel rails and the flow of oil. The first large-scale overland shipment of Iranian crude oil to China by rail has been confirmed, marking a historic milestone in global energy logistics. This is not just a routine delivery, it's a bold maneuver that signals a dramatic shift in how nations move their most vital resources. This move, executed in secrecy and with meticulous planning, circumvents Western sanctions and redraws the map of global energy flows. The world's traditional choke points, straits and sea lanes, are suddenly less relevant, as a new artery pulses across the heart of Eurasia. Washington and its allies are caught off guard, their intelligence networks scrambling to understand the full implications. The news spreads quickly, sending ripples of concern through the highest levels of government. For years, the West focused on maritime routes, believing Iran's oil exports were contained by naval patrols and international pressure. The oceans were seen as the only battleground for energy security. The idea of a viable rail route was dismissed as impossible, an engineering fantasy, a logistical nightmare. Yet, against all odds, the vision has become reality. The mountains and deserts that once divided nations now connect them. This is more than a new trade route, it's a political statement. Iran refuses isolation, demonstrating resilience and ingenuity in the face of adversity. The message is clear: Iran will not be sidelined. China stands by its partner, defying Western pressure and reinforcing its commitment to a multipolar world. This partnership is not just economic, it's deeply strategic, reshaping alliances and power structures. Together they've turned geography into a strategic advantage, forging a new Silk Road across mountains and deserts. The landscape that once separated empires now serves as a bridge for commerce and cooperation. The rumble of these trains signals a new geopolitical reality, one where old rules no longer apply, and new possibilities emerge with every mile of track laid. This rail link is a lifeline for Iran's economy and a secure energy source for China, bypassing vulnerable sea lanes and reducing exposure to maritime threats. It's a logistical triumph and a strategic shield. For the West, it's a moment of reckoning. The effectiveness of sanctions is now in question. The old playbook is no longer enough, and new strategies must be devised. A new front in great power competition is open, not on the oceans, but along the steel tracks of Eurasia. The contest for influence now stretches across continents, reshaping the global order. The world is watching as the balance of power shifts, with every trainload of oil symbolizing a challenge to the status quo. The implications are global, and the stakes have never been higher. The West must now confront a reality it never imagined, a world where its influence is no longer absolute, and where new alliances rewrite the rules of engagement. The ancient Silk Road has been reborn, carrying not silk, but oil, and with it, a new era. The echoes of history blend with the roar of modern engines, as the world enters an age defined by new connections and shifting power. The Iran-China partnership is decades in the making, forged by mutual need and skepticism of US dominance. China needs energy, Iran needs a market and a powerful ally. Their 25-year strategic agreement, signed in 2021, cemented this bond. Chinese investment for discounted oil. The deal goes beyond energy, integrating Iran into China's Belt and Road Initiative and expanding cooperation in technology and security. Historically, most Iranian oil to China traveled by sea, dodging sanctions through risky maneuvers. Maritime routes were vulnerable. The rail link is the answer. This shift is not just tactical evasion, it's strategic resilience. Iran and China are building a sanction-proof economic ecosystem, laying steel tracks for a multipolar world. Their partnership is now written in iron across the continent. The new rail route is a remarkable feat of logistics and strategy, representing years of careful planning and international cooperation. It's not just a line on a map, but a living, breathing artery of commerce and energy, pulsing across the heart of Asia. This corridor weaves its way through Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan, connecting distant regions and cultures along its path. Special oil trains, loaded with valuable crude, begin their journey at Iran's northern refineries. They cross multiple borders with military-like precision, each checkpoint a testament to the coordination between nations. Central Asian nations, enticed by lucrative transit fees and the growing influence of China, have quietly, but decisively, joined this ambitious corridor, forging new economic ties. The route spans vast deserts and rugged mountains, overcoming technical hurdles such as differing rail gauges. New transshipment facilities, built with significant Chinese investment, have sprung up, often unnoticed by the West, but vital to the corridor's success. This corridor is about more than just transport, it's about security and redundancy. By bypassing vulnerable maritime choke points, it offers a safer, more reliable route, binding Central Asia ever closer to Beijing's sphere of influence. The path is carefully chosen to avoid Afghanistan's persistent instability and Russia's unpredictable complications, opting instead for the route of least resistance and maximum efficiency. Nicknamed the Iron Serpent, this corridor is more than just steel tracks, it's a new artery of power, pumping Iranian oil directly into China and quietly reshaping the geopolitical landscape of Eurasia. Western intelligence agencies, focused elsewhere, largely missed the scale and long-term vision behind this project, underestimating its potential impact. Now, the strategic landscape of the continent is being redrawn in steel, as new connections and alliances take shape across Central Asia, setting the stage for a new era of transcontinental trade and influence. For decades, Western sanctions have relied on controlling the flow of money and maritime trade, operating under the belief that oil couldn't move without passing through these tightly monitored systems. The logic was simple: if you control the sea lanes and the financial networks, you control the oil. But now, the emergence of a new rail corridor across Eurasia shatters that long-held assumption, opening up fresh routes that bypass the old choke points entirely. Overland, oil can move quietly and efficiently, far beyond the reach of Western enforcement. Transactions are increasingly settled in yuan instead of dollars, and the trains cross sovereign lands where Western influence is limited or non-existent. Central Asian nations, many of which are economically dependent on China, have little incentive to halt this lucrative flow. In fact, their cooperation with China only strengthens these new trade routes. The West now finds itself with no ships to interdict, no waters to patrol, and no easy way to enforce its will. Attempting to sanction these railways would likely backfire, pushing these nations even further into China's strategic orbit and deepening their economic ties. The limits of sanctions are now exposed in a world that is no longer unipolar, but increasingly multipolar and interconnected. The rail link stands as a physical and symbolic challenge to economic coercion, demonstrating that coordinated resistance and innovation can break the old system of control. The West faces a new reality. Its primary tool of pressure, maritime dominance and financial leverage, is being steadily dismantled, forcing a fundamental rethink of global power dynamics. This is more than commerce, it's geopolitical defiance. Iran and China are building parallel systems, ending the era of uncontested US hegemony. The rail link stabilizes Iran's economy and strengthens its negotiating hand, while China secures energy and expands its influence across Central Asia. The US finds itself outmaneuvered in Eurasia as a new axis of resistance emerges. The chessboard is being reset, with alliances and power shifting along the tracks. The Iran-China rail link is about more than oil. It's about forging new realities on the ground. The world's balance of power is being rewritten in steel. The immediate impact on oil prices is muted, but the structural shift is profound. A new sanction-proof supply route means Iranian oil can consistently reach the market, altering forecasts and undermining OPEC+ control. The global energy market is fragmenting into two tiers. One dollar-based and maritime, the other yuan-based and landlocked. This bifurcation erodes the petrodollar's dominance and creates new risks and opportunities. For the West, it exposes the vulnerability of relying on a single, integrated market. For China, it's a leap toward energy independence from hostile naval powers. The rail link could embolden Beijing in global disputes, knowing its energy supply is secure. Energy security now means securing both sources and routes. The rules of the game have changed. The Iran-China rail corridor has left Western policymakers with few options. Sanctions and naval power are ineffective against trains. Secondary sanctions on Central Asia risk backfiring, pushing these nations closer to Beijing. The Western alliance is divided. Europe is cautious. The US, frustrated. Intelligence failures have exposed a blind spot. Too much focus on the seas, not enough on the heartland. The West must now rethink its strategy, moving beyond coercion to creative engagement. The world of 2025 demands new thinking and new partnerships. The Iran-China oil train is a front line in economic warfare fought with railways, payment systems, and strategic investments. China, Iran, and Russia are shifting from evading sanctions to making them irrelevant through infrastructure and de-dollarization. New trade routes and currencies bypass Western control, creating a resilient Eurasian bloc. As more trade moves off the dollar grid, US sanctions lose their bite. The West's old playbook is obsolete. Adversaries are building a new game board. Competing in this world requires more than punishment. It demands innovation, alliances, and a compelling economic vision. The Iran-China rail link is a wake-up call. The future belongs to those who adapt. The oil trains rumbling across Asia signal the end of a US-dominated energy era. The Iran-China rail link is a symbol of a world splitting into competing energy blocks, one maritime and dollar-based, the other landlocked and yuan-driven. Energy is now a tool of hard power and the market is fragmenting. Diversified routes may bring resilience but also volatility and new risks. Access to energy will depend on geopolitical alignment. The old map is obsolete, the lines of power and trade have shifted. The West must adapt. For the future of energy and global power is being forged on these tracks. The Silk Road has returned, and with it, a new world order.